Reading between the lines, how stories shape our social intelligence. One of the activities in the Read to Lead challenge suggests we read a work of fiction, which I did, but not without reflecting on it. I read way more non-fiction than fiction, but it used to be the other way around. More on that later. The challenge mentions a quote by Dr. Keith Oatley, author of the book Such Stuff as Dreams, The Psychology of Fiction. Reading fiction improves your understanding of social relationships. That also reminded me of Mark Manson's book, Everything is a book about hope, in which he discusses how the world is moved by feeling. Fiction can tap into people's feelings and deliver a message that data and facts can't. After the specific activity proposed by the challenge, I picked up a few fiction books. One of them was Andrew Krivak's The Bear. Around the same time, I was reading Jeff Tweedy's How to Write One Song, which had an exercise in which you were to pick sentences from any book as inspiration for song lyrics. I remember randomly flicking through pages of The Bear and landing on a few words that connected with something I felt at the time. That inspired me and helped me finish the lyrics to a song I was working on. I also read Paulo Coelho's The Alchemist. Many people worldwide speak highly of this book. I remember when it came out in 1988, and I saw many people reading it in Brazil. But then, I was into reading something else, and The Alchemist had to wait until my mid-40s. As a child and into my early teens, I used to read a lot of comic books. Not the colorful ones for kids though. Growing up in the 80s, I was experiencing the dark, more mature works of Frank Miller and Alan Moore. I remember walking to the newsstands as a child to see if the next edition of V for Vendetta, The Dark Knight Returns, or Watchmen had come out. I still have some of the Brazilian editions with me. One of those comic books is an X-Men graphic novel that Marvel released in 1982. It was only released in Brazil in 1988. Even though I was reading that as a kid, I knew the superpowers were only the backdrop to mature content. Until writing this post, I only knew the Brazilian Portuguese title, which roughly translates into The Conflict of a Race. I now know that the original title is God Loves, Man Kills. According to an AI-powered search, in this narrative, the X-Men confront Reverend William Stryker, an extremist who incites anti-mutant sentiment. This leads to a collaboration between the X-Men and their adversary, Magneto, to counter Stryker's campaign of hatred. Almost 4 decades later, I can attest to Dr. Oatley's point that fiction did improve my understanding of social relationships. I also remember reading 2 Spider-Man stories that shook me: The Night Gwen Stacy Died and The Green Goblin's Last Stand. I didn't find your friendly neighborhood Spider-Man in those stories. I found a young Peter Parker going through profound hardships, including the death of his love, Gwen Stacy, which could have been caused either by him or his best friend's father, a man who was out to kill Peter while his son was lost in drugs and begging for Peter's help, who felt helpless even to support himself. Talk about social relationships. In my teenage years, I also started reading fiction books in English to learn the language. My favorites were books by authors such as Stephen King, Clive Barker, Ken Follett, and Anne Rice. Since then, I have enjoyed fictional books with a purpose, using narrative to teach lessons in life, business, or personal growth. My favorites include The Art of Mentoring, Way of the Peaceful Warrior, The Goal, A Process of Ongoing Improvement, The Phoenix Project, and The Unicorn Project. The next activity in the Read to Lead challenge inspired me to read a specific group of fiction books, banned books. See you soon.